Hello, today we are going to see how JavaScript executes a program. So एक प्रोग्राम के अंदर वेरिएबल्स होंगे, कुछ फंक्शंस होंगे, कुछ कंसोल स्टेटमेंट्स होंगी, कुछ एडिशनल टास्क होगा. तो जैसे कि लेट्स से वी हैव a program where x is equal to 10, and then we have a function call, function definition, declaration, function test, console dot log x console dot log hey. Close this function and then we simply call this function test. So what happens? So JavaScript executes each program line by line, line by line. So when when this file is loaded and JavaScript engine receives this file, so it creates a global execution context. What it creates? Global execution context. It has two phases. First is memory creation phase, and then second is code execution phase. Memory, here we have all the variables and all the functions which are there. Variables, functions, all are there. Okay, so now for execution, there is something called call stack. Okay, call stack. So call stack helps JavaScript to keep a track of which function is currently running. So let's say this is the stack. So very first time this global execution context will be pushed onto the stack. Okay, this is added. Now let's say all the variables. Here it would come x. Everything would be hoisted. All the variables and the function declarations will be hoisted. So x will be undefined and test would be a function. Okay, now it would be executed line by line. So x is equals to 10. So what happens is this value of undefined would be replaced by 10, and then function test, this is just a declaration, so not an invocation. So finally control comes to this point, test is being invoked. Test invoked. Now what happens? Another execution context will be created for test. Okay, and it will have variable. Again, it would have two phases, memory and code. Okay, memory, it will have the variables, but here we don't have any variables, so it would just be code. It would be executed console.log x. So now when we are trying to access x, so first it would check in the memory, do we have x in the local memory? X is there? No, x is not there. So what happens? We'll see in the next part. Okay, so this execution context once created, and this would be pushed onto the stack. This will be test, and once test is done exploration, it would be popped out from the stack. And similarly, once the global execution context is done, it would be also popped out from the stack. So whichever is on the top of the stack, whichever function is on the top of the stack, it would be executed. Okay, current execution would be pointing to the top of the stack. Next we have yes, so we have something called Lexical environment. Okay, what is that? It's like a box. It's like a memory location. It's actually a memory location. So it has your variables, your functions, and a reference to your parents' variables and function. Okay, so here there would be a small reference to global execution functions lexical environment. This is nothing but lexical environment, variable function and reference to your parents' variables and functions. Wherever your parents, your variables and functions are declared, are stored, it is called, that memory location is called lexical environment. Why lexical? Because literally wherever it is written, it belongs to, because it is determined by where it is written. Okay, so now x is not there, but it has access to parents lexical environment. Now x is equal to 10, it belongs here. So here it also has access to x is equal to 10. So when you are trying to print x, it would be printed as 10. Okay, this is called as, this process is called as scope chaining. Suppose we are trying to look up for a variable. So you look into your scope, then your parent scope, and so on. एक और चीज़ था कि ग्लोबल एग्जीक्यूशन कॉन्टेक्स्ट में जो आपका ये रेफरेंस होता है ना, ये जो रेफरेंस होता है टू योर पेरेंट्स, सो दिस इज नल. दैट मीन्स वी हैव रीच्ड द एंड ऑफ द सीरीज. सो दिस इज़ ऑल वी हैव कवर्ड हाउ जावास्क्रिप्ट एग्जीक्यूट्स अ प्रोग्राम. हमने देखा कि ग्लोबल एग्जीक्यूशन कॉन्टेक्स्ट क्रिएट होता है, जितने भी वेरिएबल्स होते हैं, फंक्शंस होते हैं, हॉइस्टेड किए जाते हैं यहाँ पे. फिर उसके बाद देर इज़ समथिंग कॉल्ड लेक्सिकल एनवायरनमेंट, जो वेरिएबल फंक्शंस और एक रेफरेंस होता है टू योर पेरेंट्स लेक्सिकल एनवायरनमेंट, वो होता है. फिर कोडिंग फेज़ आता है जिसमें लिटरली लाइन बाय लाइन कोड वैल्यूज़ असाइन होती है, फंक्शन इन्वोकेशंस होते हैं. एंड जब ये क्रिएट हो जाता है तो इसको पॉप किया जाता है फॉर एग्जीक्यूशन ऑन टू द कॉल स्टैक. Call stack is nothing but how JavaScript keeps a track of the functions to be run. The top of the stack points to the current running function. Once done, the function is popped out from the stack. Okay, then in the lexical environment we have a reference to your parents variables and functions. So lexical environment is nothing but, yeah, it's a location, it's a box. It's a box where literally your variables and functions are stored, and उसमें एक reference होता है to your parent. So definitely you, whatever you have access to, you can also access your parents variables and functions. And इसी को scope chaining कहते हैं. When you are trying to look up for a variable, it is not in your current scope, you look for your parent scope, and similarly above, on top of the hierarchy. So this is how we have learned such a beautiful concept.